Hello everyone, I'm Breor and welcome back to Goodgame Empire. I'll be showing you how to tackle the Blade Coast in today's video, so please sit back and relax for several minutes of instruction. The Blade Coast is similar to two other in-game events, the Thorn King and the Underworld, in that it challenges the player to design a camp that will help them repel enemy forces from a special event map. At most, only one of these three events will be running at any given time, so you should definitely feel comfortable using the last few days of the Thorn King or the Underworld to prepare for the Blade Coast. Some of the things that you can do to prepare include recruiting strong melee and ranged attackers, as both will be needed for the event, looting accelerators and rubies, and constructing wooden mantlets. In order to be truly successful with the event, you will need to have approximately 1,000 ruby mantlets handy. The event will first appear as a message from Queen Namia in your inbox. Once clicked upon, this call to action will yield to a screen where players can select the caliber of camp they wish to start the event with. There is an option to spend rubies to get a stronger starting camp, but I wouldn't recommend that you do so because the potential prizes of the event are probably not worth such a large initial investment. High-level players with lots of resources and accelerators will find construction in the Blade Coast to be exceedingly easy. I built the camp you see now in a matter of hours thanks to accelerators. Because the buildings in your camp will determine the size and strength of your armies, it's important that you complete some construction before making major efforts on the world map. Let's talk briefly about the types of buildings you can choose to construct. The number of tents you have will control how many soldiers you are allowed to transport to the Blade Coast, but the expressed capacity can be exceeded whenever you receive Kingsguard soldiers as rewards for completing quests. For this reason, players who are able to dedicate several consecutive hours of time to the game may be interested in racing through the event as fast as possible. Something important to consider is that you need to have room for at least one additional troop if you want to send in tools from your other castles, as tools will need to be accompanied by an attacker. I like to build additional level 1 tents rather than upgrade the ones I have because doing so is cheaper and quicker. The upgraded tents you do see in my camp were given to me at the start of the event or upgraded as an overnight project. The next buildings of importance are these supply storehouses, which will dictate how many resources can be stored in your camp. Having several additional storehouses will give you the ability to hold enough food to feed your small army overnight, which is super important because any starvation problems will definitely set you back. You might be tempted to build enough storehouses to start a feast here, but you'll quickly realize that there's actually no place to do it. At least in Breor, the game doesn't let you build that number of storehouses anyways. This hunter's camp acts sort of like a bakery. I wouldn't suggest upgrading it because doing so costs rubies and I would be wary of investing too many rubies in this event. Finally, and most importantly, there are several types of decorative items that you can construct in your camp. Because one doesn't do a lot of producing here in the Blade Coast, these decorative items contribute to your total morale in place of your total public order. The morale bar at the top of the screen shows how strong your soldiers will be when they go to attack towers and convoys. This value gets exponentially harder to increase as you continue to build decorative items, so at some point it stops being worth it. Unless you have a ton of tents like I do, tents reduce morale, you should be able to increase the strength of your attackers by about 80%. Outside your camp you will find event structures and your docks. This themed version of the Mercenaries camp sells troops and tools for ridiculously high amounts of rubies, so you shouldn't even bother clicking on it. The traveling merchant sells resources for rubies, but resources haven't been a problem either, so I would recommend you avoid him as well. That brings us to the docks, a place you will need to visit occasionally to upgrade your warship. This vessel controls how far you are allowed to progress across the world map, and you won't be getting far without it. The good news is that all of the upgrades are done with normal resources, so they aren't a big deal for most players. There are two different types of targets we can choose to attack here on the world map. I've already gone ahead and completed the entire event, which is too bad for the purposes of this video, but let me tell you about towers. Occupied by the pirates at first, once you defeat the towers you will capture them, thereby unlocking the connected convoys and further eastward movement. When compared to convoys, towers aren't very rewarding to attack since they inflict the same amount of casualties but give out fewer pearls. In order to be really successful in this event, you should definitely try to defeat all of the towers because doing so will give you access to more convoys. This can only be done at the expense of both tools and troops, but the good news is there's an achievement for doing so. An important decision to make about your approach to dealing with the event is whether you want to attack in a straight line across the map first or clear out all of the towers as you go. Getting to the Kraken ahead of time is a priority for some players, though honestly I don't feel that the decorative item you get for doing so is very good. Goodgame Empire will make this approach difficult since the towers will often have an imbalance of melee and ranged defenders. This means that you will need to send out tons of ranged or melee attackers all at one time, and you might not be able to do that thanks to your camp's limitations. If you choose to attack only the towers you need to get across the map, you might also be short on resources for upgrading your warship. For these reasons, I normally end up attacking all of the towers and moving across the map slowly, regardless of what my intentions start out as. Regardless of what approach you take, one thing you should be absolutely certain to avoid is starving your attackers. The maximum and minimum amount of food produced in this kingdom is 200 units an hour, which means that when starvation does occur, you pretty much lose everything. It can be very demoralizing to lose so much progress and strength at once. Once you see that food shortage message in your inbox, the last thing you'll be enthusiastic about is transferring more troops into the Blade Coast. To avoid starving your attackers, increase your storage capacity and attack pirate convoys to loot food. If an emergency occurs, you can always transfer in food from one of your other castles. I've spoken a lot about convoys without really telling you what they are. Pirate convoys are targets you attack to loot resources including wood, stone, food, and most importantly pearls. There are 8 levels of pirate convoys players can challenge themselves with. The higher level convoys are located further away from your camp and will be more difficult to defeat, but they provide players with a way to loot more pearls at once. Level 70 players will find that the level 7 camps are the most worthwhile to attack because there's generally enough room to fit in all of the necessary tools. Let me go ahead and demonstrate a quick attack on this here convoy. All of your targets in the Blade Coast come pre-spied, and you won't be able to use any of your superior commanders. This helps put weaker and stronger players on the same foot in the event, though I don't think that the Blade Coast would be worth attempting for players below level 50. You'll notice that I'm having to use some ruby mantlets to take care of the ranged defender's combat strength. Once I've finished placing all of my tools, I can fill in these 2 sections of my attack with ranged attackers, and I can place my melee attackers on wave 2. Due to the limitations upon armies here in the Blade Coast, you probably won't be able to fill an entire attack, and this is okay. Because the travel time to a level 7 pirate convoy is so lengthy, I won't be taking a look at the results of this attack, but I can tell you, you should always come away with less than 30 casualties. Speaking of things I can't show you, I also can't show you an attack on the Kraken because I already defeated it. The Kraken is most comparable to a dragon from the Fire Peaks, and if you do want to see me attacking it, check the link in this video's description to go watch another video where I do just that. In the meantime, we can take a look at one of these 3 far less exciting reports here in my inbox. These attacks were conducted against some level 1 pirate convoys, which are normally able to be defeated without the attacker taking any casualties. I'm showing you this to point out the pearls that are offered by pirate convoys. These pearls are the currency of this event and can be used to purchase prizes back in the Great Empire, so let's go take a look. As usual, I'll be examining each of the prizes individually, and as usual, the option to convert your pearls to coins is complete rubbish. These 3 decorative items are interesting, but have been rendered mostly obsolete by the overpowerful Fountain of Inner Peace. Low-level players who could use a boost to their public order may consider purchasing some Brides of the Waves, especially if they have small spaces to fill. These renegade attackers are reasonably powerful and can do a lot of damage to your enemy's castles. I purchased a few before I started filming this video to determine whether or not they would be placed in the Blade Coast or in the Great Empire. The troops were added to my main in the Great Empire. These 3 unique pieces of equipment are the highlight of the entire event. I've never purchased the Sea Queen Scepter, but it looks to be a very solid piece, and I might go for it if there turns out to be enough time left in the event. Unfortunately, the set bonus for the Armor of the Adventurer is really bad, so unless Death's Grin is an interesting piece as well, there's not much incentive for making that set happen. I've already purchased the other 2 unique items, and that's for a very good reason. You are left with a awesome 90/90 commander when you combine these 2 pieces with 2 other pieces from the Storm Islands. I made a video about this commander a long time ago, so you can check the video description for a link at which you can learn more. I used the pieces I just purchased to complete a second Bladestorm commander, which can be seen here. This one still needs to be treated by the Technicus. The reason this commander is so good is because of the great set bonus offered by the 2 pieces from the Blade Coast. Both individual pieces increase the combat strength of your ranged attackers, but they also increase the strength of your melee attackers when they are put together. So there you have it, a complete guide to the Storm Islands. If you enjoyed this video, please do me a big favor and share it with your Alliance members so that they too can get started in the Blade Coast. I've been Breor, and I'll see you in the next video.